we like to pretend that sports live in completely separate worlds. That the grueling, mud-soaked suffering of professional cycling has nothing to do with the pristine, billion-dollar grass of the World Cup. But at the absolute pinnacle of human performance, every athletic engine runs on the exact same fuel. And in 2006, the greatest cheating scandal in cycling accidentally unlocked the darkest secret in the history of football. To protect the world's most profitable game, an institutional sacrifice had to be made. And the sport of cycling was chosen to bleed. This is the dossier on Operation Puerto, the largest, most sophisticated, and most heavily guarded biological conspiracy in the history of modern sports. To understand the scale of this deception, you must first understand the brutal limits of human biology. In endurance sports, red blood cells are everything. They are the microscopic trucks that carry oxygen from your lungs to your screaming muscles. When a cyclist climbs an alpine peak, or a midfielder runs 13 kilometers in a World Cup knockout match, their cells collapse from exhaustion. The body hits a biological wall, unless you find a way to artificially expand the fleet. The mechanics of blood doping are frighteningly simple. Months before competition, an athlete extracts a pint of their own blood. A machine separates the red cells, freezing them in deep stasis, while the body naturally rebuilds its lost supply. Then, right before the big race or the tournament, the frozen blood is reinfused. Suddenly, the athlete has 2 extra pints of oxygen-carrying power surging through their veins. They don't fatigue. They don't slow down. They become superhuman. But storing hundreds of pints of human tissue requires a highly regulated shadow infrastructure. You need an architect who understands both the limits of medicine and the desperation of million-dollar athletes. Enter Dr. Eufemiano Fuentes, a charismatic Spanish gynecologist turned sports physician. Fuentes didn't operate in shadowy alleys or backrooms. He ran an elite, high-end laboratory right in the prestigious center of Madrid. To the public, it was an ordinary sports clinic, but behind heavily reinforced doors, it was a biological bank for the global sporting elite. European football stars, Olympic sprinters, and legendary Grand Tour cyclists all held secret accounts here. Fuentes treated human blood like a highly classified investment portfolio. He organized the plastic bags in high-tech, specialized freezers, meticulously cataloging them to ensure total anonymity. Names were strictly forbidden in the ledgers. Instead, the world's greatest athletes were reduced to cryptic, handwritten code names. Son of Judicial, number 18, Alibaba, and Classicamano. The logistics of Operation Puerto resembled a Cold War spy network. Transporting frozen blood across international borders without breaking the cold chain required immaculate precision. Athletes would use burner phones to coordinate drop-offs in anonymous hotel rooms across Madrid. Couriers walked through luxury lobbies carrying unmarked cooler bags packed with dry ice and human plasma. Fuentes didn't just store the blood. He perfected the cocktails. He cross-referenced blood bags with advanced blood boosters like EPO, growth hormones, and masking agents designed to fool the anti-doping tests. For nearly a decade, the system was invincible. It was a multi-million euro ghost operation that legally didn't exist. Until a routine border check began to unravel the thread. In May 2006, just weeks before the kickoff of the FIFA World Cup and the start of the Tour de France, the Spanish Guardia Civil decided to strike. Dozens of armed detectives raided apartments and laboratories across Madrid linked to Fuentes. When they forced open the commercial freezers in his main facility, the officers stood in absolute silence. Inside the cooling units sat exactly 211 systematically packed bags of frozen human blood and plasma. All of them frozen at 96 degrees below zero, waiting for their owners to claim them. Along with the frozen tissue, police uncovered thousands of steroid pills, blood clotting machines, and the holy grail of the investigation: Fuentes' private journals and payment ledgers. The media fallout was instant, vicious, and completely localized. The global sporting press needed names immediately, and the authorities gave them exactly what they wanted: the cyclists. Within 48 hours, police matched the cryptic code names to the absolute giants of professional cycling. Jan Ullrich, the dominant German champion; Ivan Basso, the Italian superstar; Francisco Manchebo, Spain's national hero. The timing was devastating. The Tour de France was scheduled to start in days. In an unprecedented move, entire teams were barred from starting. Icons of the sport were pulled from their hotel rooms in disgrace. Their careers permanently ended in front of rolling cameras. Cycling was forced to undergo a brutal, humiliating public purge. It was dragged through the mud, bleeding sponsors, and losing millions in broadcast rights, widely branded as the dirtiest sport on earth. But as the cycling world was systematically burned to the ground, a terrifying, protective silence fell over the rest of the sporting complex. Because behind the public executions, there was a glaring mathematical lie. 211 blood bags were seized in the raid. But after months of exhaustive investigation, only around 50 bags were linked to professional cyclists. So, who owned the other 161 bags of blood? The terrifying answer came directly from the architect himself. Standing in front of a Spanish judge, facing prison time, Dr. Fuentes dropped a biological bomb that should have shattered global sport. He explicitly stated under oath, "I did not just work with cyclists. My client list included track and field athletes, tennis players, and world-class footballers." Fuentes offered to reveal every single identity. He had the documents to prove exactly which multi-millionaire football players, playing in La Liga and preparing for the 2006 World Cup, had his blood in their systems. But the moment football entered the crosshairs, the entire justice system mobilized its defenses. Football is not merely a sport. It is an untethered sovereign economy, a religion too massive to fail. The judge presiding over the case made a ruling that defied judicial logic. She explicitly ordered Dr. Fuentes to stop talking. She legally blocked him from naming any tennis players or football stars, declaring that it would violate their right to privacy. Even worse, the court ordered the remaining 161 blood bags, the physical, undeniable DNA proof of the greatest cheating network in football history, to be physically incinerated. The law chose to actively burn the evidence. It took 10 years of brutal legal appeals from anti-doping agencies to finally save the remaining bags from destruction. But by the time the bags were opened in 2016, the statute of limitations had run out. The names were legally dead, while cycling carried the cross and tore itself apart to achieve transparency. Football danced through the 2006 World Cup completely untouched, protected by a shield of billions. Operation Puerto proved that the science of deception was universal, but justice was strictly selective. Until the shadow archives are fully unsealed, keep the files open. File closed. The Bike Files. Subscribe for the next case.